Kaylene's name, and I referred to you as Shaylene earlier. So
all
my
right.
apologies. You didn't hear it, so it really doesn't count.
It's all good.
I figured you wouldn't be terribly upset. Get the green light from Neil and we'll get started.
You guys are all set.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Neil.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order. Let's do a roll call. Chris Bowles,
Here.
Chris Patchell,
Here.
Pam Rowland,
Here.
Kayleen Schaefer,
Here.
Paul Tinney,
Here.
Sean Fletcher's here, and John Johnson is here. Introduction of guest. Is Deborah going to be able to talk to us, or?
I guess if she's listening, maybe Neil could add her if she's tuned in.
She's our prospective board member.
Yep. Let's see if Neil's there and can add her. He might be looking right now.
What's her name?
Deborah Higgins.
I don't see her.
She may not have tuned in. I guess maybe keep an eye out. If not,
Okay.
we could move forward and come back to that item if we need to.
Okay. Any changes to the agenda? I actually received a call from a former city commissioner who would like us to discuss Martin Luther King Park. So I'd like.
Yeah, I can give an update on that.
Okay.
So a couple of things have happened that set us back. Of course, COVID-19 being one of those. The other thing that we had the Friends of Recreation executive director helping with that project to involve youth in kind of helping define what change, in addition to city residents, but we were going to involve and engage youth around making improvements to MLK Park. Obviously, that person is no longer in that executive director role. So, and then COVID hit. So we're kind of in a place where we need to kind of regroup. I know Pam's interested in, having some of the kids that she works with be a part of that process. We'll engage youth around ideas and, what that park could be as long as, in addition to residents. And I know, because Zadie Jackson had reached out to me as well and wanted to understand, what we were doing, what could we do or what could she do to help? She's interested in being part of the fundraising committee, if there is one, which my guess is there might be. So the other update would be the trees that were supposed to be planted in the spring right before COVID hit. So we have selected a species of tree called a hawthorn tree, really beautiful tree. Pam helped us with that. And we are going to do tree guards around the base of those trees so they can get established, not get hit by mowers, and hopefully have a really good opportunity to survive the first couple years, which is obviously very important. But we can't plant those during the summer; they won't last. We'll plant those in the fall in accordance with the city forester's recommendation. So that's a quick update. I did see that Commissioner Cunningham has his hand raised as well.
Hey, can you fill me in? I do not remember the organization's name, but there is one that is also not a part of the city, but they've been taking care of that park since, I want to say since the 90s. Do you remember, Fletcher, what their name is?
No, but Pam will tell you.
Sure. Hello, Eric. That organization would be the Kalamazoo Junior Girls.
Thank
and
you.
Yes, we adopted that park early on in the latter 80s. And so we have been connected, and we are hoping that soon, maybe in 2021, we will be able to gather with other youth, other community leaders, some people from Kalamazoo and Bloom, those that work at Bronson Park, and come up with a scheme involving the community. And as Shawn indicated, this summer, I have to say right now, the condition of that park is not presentable at all. And as Shawn said, there have been some things that happened, you know, with the COVID and not being able to get with the youth or to get our planting done. And so we have not, or we did not put the flowers in this summer. So we're hoping that maybe as the season change, we can till the beds and maybe put some mum plants in the park and do something aesthetically pleasing until we can come up with a plan for developing that park in 2021. The trees, I think, are going to be a good asset to the park, as well as the tree guards. And Shawn didn't mention, but we will, with the trees that's going to be planted, we're looking at dedicating those trees to community pioneers and involving the youth in that process. And so I think as we have the opportunity to come together and work up a plan and letting the youth take ownership of the park, I think that we're going to be able to get to where we need to be in recognition of Dr. King.
Okay, thank you. I want to make sure that they were at the table. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I think the concern that was made to me is that it's in disrepair. It looks bad. The trees are dead. And the concern that was made to me is that things have been promised, it will get done, and it just seems to be pushed further and further and further back.
It does. And that's somewhat disappointing to me. And I don't understand why that's been. And it seemed like that has been the history of that particular park space. I don't understand it. And we know that we do have problems in that park, but it still does not account for the park looking the way that it does. The city does a good job in coming and cleaning up on a daily basis. There are a couple of lights from the lampposts that I noticed recently that are not working. The flower beds, they have not been tilled. That park hasn't looked this bad in a long time. I'm disappointed. And as I said, I don't understand. You know, there are things such as the sidewalks, they are so damaged, and it's a liability actually to the city, you know, and not only an embarrassment, you know, it's a memorial park. And if we're talking about honoring the man in which that park was named for, we have to do better as a community and not overlook it, particularly when we see other things that are being developed in some of the other neighboring parks. And as you said, it seemed like, you know, there have been commitments made to make improvements, and here we are. You know, it's been at least since 2015 since we've been trying to get something done with that park. Even with the trees, the placement of the trees, there have been trees planted, but they weren't able to survive because if without tree guards, they're not going to make it. And so,
And
yes, there is a concern.
I would, it was Commissioner Zadie Jackson who inquired about Martin Luther King Park. She also mentioned, you know, if there's any fundraising needs or anything of that nature, that she'd be willing to assist in that capacity. So it might benefit the junior girls to reach out to her, if for nothing else, to have further conversation, maybe see what she's interested in.
We did meet yesterday, Zadie and I, and so we're talking about getting together with a master gardener, and we're going to come up with a plan and work together with Park and Recreation. And it's going to take a little bit of time, but I don't know what we're going to do in the interim to make that park look more presentable than what it's looking like now. It's been very hot, and so it's kind of hard to do any planting or anything right now. But if we can even get the beds tilled, and then Shawn, you can speak to this, but from the Foundation for Excellence, I think we talked a little bit about there being money for the trees and the tree guards. And if you want to share a little bit about that, I hope that that money is still there to help.
Yeah, there were some dollars allocated through the Foundation for Excellence to replace trees throughout the city. And we've had a conversation with Anthony Ladd in Public Services. He supervises the forestry division, and he's in the loop as far as replacing the trees that were there. It may be a different amount of trees based on how they grow and how they spread compared to what was there. But yeah, the dollars for those trees would come out of a line item in Public Services that was through or from the Foundation for Excellence. And then I just real quick want to mention the sidewalk. We've asked the question and made the request for the sidewalk repairs. And it's one of those things where the budget dollars are not in our budget or Public Services budget. They're not allocated for the repair of all those sidewalks. And the issue, and Pam talked about the disrepair, it's tree roots that have buckled many pieces of the sidewalk there and really created some trip hazards. So, we can certainly budget for that in 2021, and hopefully it doesn't get cut from our budget, but we can certainly add that as a line item.
I guess, Shawn, the frustration is that there have been concerns with this park in the past, and I'm not sure that Pam and Zadie have seen a lot of progress. And I understand that there may not be progress because of COVID or budget or whatever, but I think we need some sort of spruce up, at least temporarily, for that park until we can do something more significant.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I do want to be clear, though, that we have a number of parks that get even way less attention than MLK Park and that are in, similar condition because of, resources, and, COVID has backed up some maintenance practices and things like that. So I just want to be clear that we're not selectively neglecting that park. We have others in the system that, they need attention as well. And it's a matter of prioritizing and then also resources for sure.
Oh, and I think we all agree. I think we all agree with that. But that was the message I was getting from Zadie, was that she had been in the park with Pam and that it looked pretty horrible in her opinion. And to be honest, she was rather angry about it. So just a heads up. And she's obviously spoken to you.
Yeah, she sent me an email, and like Pam said, we will work together with her. I think she knows potential cement contractors that may be able to do some donation of time and materials, which is great. We just need to coordinate that with our folks in Public Services to make sure it meets, whatever city standards there are for sidewalks. But we're very supportive and open to, anybody that's willing to secure in-kind work and donations of materials and things like that. So we'll certainly pursue that further.
Sure. Absolutely. Did we have any other changes to the agenda?
I do have one add to the event approval. It's a real quick one.
Okay.
Can Can we add that to the end of the meeting if possible? I know a lot of people are waiting and prefer to not hold them up as, you know.
Oh, we need it, we need to add that to the agenda and we can get to it during the event recommendations.
You mean
Okay.
people that have left voicemails, Chris?
Yeah, and people who are waiting in the the attendee section to contribute to this meeting.
So I'm gonna let Neil chime in on that one if he's listening. Can we control that if it starts to go south?
Shawn, I think my concern is that we have a lot of people waiting for a certain section of this meeting. And is it possible to move that up and then have our normal PRAB stuff after?
I'm fine with that. My question to Neil is, and I don't know if you watched the first city commission meeting that was a Zoom meeting, but there was some very, very inappropriate things said and people had to be cut off. And that's why we provide the phone number where people can call in and leave a message.
Got it.
We're not doing live comments today for a reason.
Got it. Okay.
So sorry if that wasn't clear, but that's the reason behind the people calling in to leave a message.
I think
Because
the
we
order
have
of the
no,
meeting
once
was-
they start talking, we have no control over what's being said.
Got it.
The 35 participants are just on to listen to what the board is actually saying, their thoughts and comments.
But
Okay.
to your point, Chris, we can certainly, you and the board chair can certainly decide to move an agenda item up to accommodate those that are waiting to listen to hear that item. That's well within your purview.
As far as I can tell, the agenda is in that order too. So there's new business on the Glen Park BMX track before the event recommendations. So
Perfect.
But Chris Bowl, do you want to move Glen Park up on the agenda so that people can leave once that's done?
Yeah, that was the intent.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that. So we will move the Glen Park BMX track to now and discuss it at this point.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Chris, do you want to start or you want me to do an intro?
Shawn, why don't you start?
So just to give you a little bit of background and an introduction, Chris, Patrick, and I met 6 weeks ago now-ish at Glen Park to just have a conversation about, the possibility of this type of an amenity within Glen Park. We looked at Glen Park north and south. Glen Park South is the potential location for the BMX track. At that time, we just said, hey, I think we can certainly look at it. We have a very specific park improvement process that requires us to engage residents, to meet with the neighborhood association. We also look at our Imagine Fund 5-year Parks and Recreation plan. We look at the neighborhood plan, and then we also look at the Imagine Kalamazoo City Master Plan for guidance. So we really just kind of took a quick look. We have several mini parks in our system. Glen Park South is considered a mini park. Some of those parks are not developed and some of them are and have, different amenities like playgrounds and such in them, walking paths. So, and I did send a little information out to the board prior to the meeting about our Imagine Fund information and aspirations for that park, and also the information from the Winchell neighborhood plan, which is where the Glen Parks are located. And that plan speaks specifically to passive areas. It's a little different than our park master plan, which allows for a little more flexibility as far as what could potentially be in that park. And I want to say, I probably should have said this to start with, but we're not going to make this decision without engaging residents and without meeting with the Oakwood Winchell Neighborhood Association. That's part of our park improvement process. We're not going to deviate from that, and we will move forward accordingly. So that's my part of it. I don't know, Chris, if you wanted to talk a little bit more about some specifics around what's being thought of for that park.
Yeah, I could talk a little bit about that. I think there's been a little bit of misinformation just in the characterization of calling it a BMX course. I think that implies like jumps and teenagers, and it really won't be any of that. Will be specifically designed for kids from preschool to maybe through 5th grade. The park is really designed, we'd like to have the park designed in a way that encourages local residents to ride their bikes over there to use it. I don't think it's going to have a big enough draw to pull in people from outside maybe a mile radius. And Portage has a similar park already, so people from the south side can just go and use that. That's kind of the point I wanted to make, I guess. It's going to be small. It's going to be for kids, and it's going to be used to.
Do you know the name?
What's that?
Do you know the name of the Portage Park? I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't. It's in Northeast Portage. Let me look that up for you. But it's not going to be a jump track. It's not going to be, crazy stunts. Like people aren't going to be crashing. It's going to be tame. It's for kids.
Another thing I wanted to clear up too, and I've seen this in a couple of the comments, and we will. The other thing that I sent earlier were all the emails that we received to our general email inbox with people either in support or in opposition to the project, if it ever happens. But one of the things that I saw in a few of those emails that people were in opposition were, the thought was that a lot of trees would be removed in order to do this. That's not the case. As we were there and looked around, there are some dead trees, there's some leaners and some hangers that need to be addressed. That would obviously happen, but there would not be a massive clearing of trees in order to create this track or bike track.
I would expect that 0 trees would be removed, and possibly some of the undergrowth towards the front of the park would be removed, but that would be about it.
Yeah, there's a couple trees in there that are leaning and a couple hangers, but those are just for safety reasons. Those for no other reason will we remove trees.
For reference, that park in Portage is Kensington Green Park.
Chris, can you talk a little bit more about why you specifically feel it's for younger kids? I mean, I watched your video, but I guess my concern, my first thought with a park or a mini park or whatever is making it specifically for one age group, because then that limits who can use it. So I guess why can't a teen use it? Why couldn't an adult use it? Now, granted, that pool's a lot smaller, sure, but why are we, I guess talk more on that end.
Yeah, so I think that's really by design. If I wanted to take my kids mountain biking, I would just load up the car and drive over to Maple Hill, because I don't think they'd find what we want to build over in Glen Park, I don't know, a ton of fun, I guess. I think that's a big part of it. I mean, there's nothing stopping an adult going over there and riding it, but it just seems like that would be unlikely.
It probably wouldn't be a challenge for teenagers.
Correct. It wouldn't be a challenge for teenagers. It wouldn't be super enjoyable.
Having had some experience with teens building a bike track in Crane Park, what's going to keep anybody from changing the configuration and adding jumps or doing something to create a more exciting track?
That's a very good question. The track will be managed by families from Winchell as well as the Southwest Michigan Mountain Biking Association, and we'll perform maintenance on it as needed. So if we do find out that people are building jumps that are not suitable for kids in elementary school, we will go ahead and remove them.
Yeah, the nice thing about, or one of the nice things about this little park is there are neighbors that have eyes on it, and you can see it from the road. The jumps and such that Chris is alluding to, the one jump was like a crazy X Games jump that, you know, we just didn't know it was back there, and then we found it and we're like, yeah, we probably need to take that down before somebody really gets hurt. So I think, not to say that, you know, it couldn't happen, but you know, people will have eyes on this park, and certainly the families of younger kids would not want their kids to go over an inappropriate jump, and would, I'm sure, be very mindful of what's happening there. So we do, once we conclude, we do have 3 voicemail comments we'll need to listen to, and when we're ready for that, Neil can play those. So whenever we're done discussing it, we can go ahead and listen to that.
So the plan from this point is to eventually have an open meeting with the neighborhood, let them.
Yeah, I would recommend that we not make a decision tonight. I would think it might be more appropriate for us to have a meeting with the neighborhood association, whatever that looks like, if it's outside, or I don't know that Zoom's necessarily going to work, but I've told Pete Kushner that I would be more than willing to come to that meeting and answer questions, and, you know, maybe Chris can join me to provide some background, but I think that's, you know, and based on our plan, we need to do that anyway for improving parks.
So Shawn, with the email that you sent out with the support emails and letters and the opposed emails, who's addressing those concerns throughout there?
We're not responding to all those emails at this time. You know, I think we certainly have received them, and we'll include those as an attachment to the minutes for this meeting, so they'll be on the record, if you will.
The record of how you responded to the ones that you wanted to?
No, they're on the record as being received and in the minutes for this meeting. So people's voices, you know, have been heard and will be recognized as part of our board minutes.
Okay, so we're not specifically going through and addressing some of those concerns? Because I went through and I mean, granted, I got it at 4 o'clock, but I did go through and I read some of those. Some of them I think are valid and should be brought up, the concerns. And I think it's only fair that we talk about them. If it's going to be put on PRAB and that's me voting on them going in, then I definitely want them to be addressed and recognized. But then there were some also, what I would also say alarming comments and responses as well, that I think unfortunately just sheds a bad light on the neighborhood. So I think that those should be addressed as well for those that are in favor of the park.
Sure.
So I'm just saying from my end, I want to make sure that if I'm voting on anything, I just feel it's fair that we actually go through all of those opposed. And I mean, I wrote down the ones that I thought were important, but I don't know if anybody else read them. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that.
Well, and I think by not taking action tonight, that gives people some more time to review some of that information, and we can, as a collective group, address, some of the concerns, and, I'd rather do one blanket statement / email instead of doing an individual response to everyone, because, some were short and sweet and some were rather lengthy and involved. And I have no problem responding to people, but I want to have a consistent message.
Yeah, I would envision us creating a document that, essentially addresses everything that's distributed to the entire Winchell neighborhood.
And one of the things that came up that I saw was, the concern about wildlife. Well, for the most part, I don't know that the wildlife is occupying that park during the daylight hours. I would bet that the deer and raccoons and whatever else is roaming around there is probably in there at night. In the daylight, I think the animals probably move out of there because it's so open. There's not a ton of places to hide in there. So, but we can certainly do that. Create the document and create a consistent message back to people, so that they know we received their message and that we're communicating back to them.
Sure. It would probably be a good thing to have before you guys actually meet with the Winchell neighborhood as well.
Sure.
So that way it's just, we've heard your voice. Here's, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, you were concerned about erosion. You put that in your letter to us. Here's our explanation on how we feel this is gonna be handled. I think that would probably also limit the time that you're investing there at the meeting as well. But again, that is just my 2 cents.
No, I totally agree. That's a great point.
I agree as well.
Hey, Shawn, for those attending the meeting who thought they were going to be able to voice their opinion and now aren't, should they still leave a voicemail, or should they wait for the next neighborhood meeting?
I think they can still call and leave a comment. Even if it's after a certain time frame, I think we can still get it from Neil. Otherwise, they could also send an email to our general email, which Danielle is what, kzooparks.org.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell them the phone number that they can call, just so that if they're listening now, that they can?
Yeah, the number that can be called to leave a comment is, of course, area code 269-226-6573. 226-6573.
So at this point, are we going to table this? Is there a recommendation to table this? Since there's not going to be any decision made tonight?
Yeah, you guys would need to somebody would need to make that motion so that we can have communication back to people, meet with the board, and then hopefully regroup in August.
Yeah.
What's the chance of having a public meeting, Shawn? Are you getting any indication that we're going to be on Zoom for another month or two? Or can we just do a socially responsible meeting outside somewhere?
I would guess that based on what we're seeing, it might be Zoom, but at some point, I think we have to have a meeting where people can be in public, where we can gather social distancing but I don't know that that's August. I mean, based on what we're seeing, it may be a little bit.
All right, so our next steps then are to, as a board, go through this list of items, Shawn, and see what we can and can't address, create a document, and then return that to the Winchell Neighborhood Association.
Yep, and then communicate, send that document back to people who have sent in an email to the general email, so that we're communicating back with folks.
Okay, so no action items today then.
I think you would probably need to make a motion to table it until we create the document, communicate back, and meet with the Oakwood Neighborhood Association.
I'd make that motion then.
All right, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And just for the record, with my OCD-ness, I did go through and create a bullet point of all of the items. So I'm more than happy to they're just quick bullet points of, like I said, erosion, parking, sidewalk, whatever it may be. I'm more than happy to just type up all of those bullet points and shoot it out. But obviously, you know, you don't want to rest on my laurels. So you're more than welcome to read all of those emails as well. There's definitely some interesting reading in there. So
Yep.
Yeah, I spent a significant amount of time looking through those too, and looking through the Winchell plan in the past and the Winchell neighborhood plan. And as a neighbor, I guess, in this neighborhood, I've got comments too. So when those comments are being accumulated, I guess I'd like to be involved and then make sure I'm able to go to the neighborhood association meeting too. I think it's something that a lot of us have interest in participating in. So I guess it'd be good just to make sure everyone's aware of things as we go along, because this wasn't even clear what we were, I mean, it really was just a discussion today. We're tabling a discussion really at this point. There was no plan to vote, I don't see on the agenda. So it's not like that decision was going to be made probably tonight anyway. But yeah, that's all I have.
Do we have any special? Go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry.
Go
We can
ahead,
either
Shawn.
do that and or Neil can play the comments.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
We do
let's do
have a
that.
couple voicemail comments that we can play. Might take a second for Neil to cue that up, or Joe to cue that up, one of the two.
Members of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. My name is Dr. Tom Small, 2502 Waite Avenue, a resident of the Oakland Drive Winchell neighborhood. Along with two other members of the City of Kalamazoo's sustainability team, responsible for advising the city on matters pertaining to natural features protection and climate action, I toured Glen Park on June 24th, 2020. We examined the tree cover and other vegetation, the terrain, and the surroundings of the park, and we talked with several neighbors. We were all agreed that a BMX track is not an appropriate use of the park. It would be disruptive to the character of a quiet neighborhood, to traffic on Kensington Avenue, and to the character of the park itself. The immediate neighbors we spoke with were strongly opposed to the idea. As an advisor on tree and woodland protection during the drafting of the city's Natural Features Protection Plan, I believe a mountain bicycle track and the greatly increased foot and bicycle traffic on the park as a whole would damage the park's important tree cover through erosion and soil compaction. The park as a whole has great potential for natural features protection and for restoration of a whole woodland ecosystem as envisioned in the Oakland Drive Winchell Neighborhood Master Plan and the city's Natural Features Protection Ordinance. This small area could serve as a model for full urban forest restoration, including native understory flowering trees, shrubs, and wildflower species. Many of my colleagues and myself involved in restoration of habitat for vanishing native pollinators and other wildlife would be happy to help with a plan for restoration of the area. Glen Park should be a true neighborhood pocket park, a place for rest, quiet contemplation, and renewal, a place for reconnecting with nature and a truly natural landscape. Moreover, its location makes it a vital part of what could be a restored woodland and wildlife corridor, winding through the entire Oakland Drive, Winchell, and Oakwood neighborhoods. The NFP and drafts of a climate action plan all emphasize the vital importance of such corridors. The installation of a mountain biking course would destroy any possibility to realize this potential. I urge the Parks Department and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board to reject the proposal for a BMX track for the park and begin instead to work with neighbors and local experts to plan and implement the restoration of the park as a woodland ecosystem. I will be happy to assist I am an expert on wild ones, native plants, and natural co-author of Using Native Plants to Restore Community in Southwest Michigan and beyond. Thank you, dear friends. Goodbye.
Hello, my name is Michael Boyer. I live in the city limits, and I'm going to read my email that I sent in case you just don't get my email. So I just want to make sure I'm covered at both ends, voicemail and email if I could. This is regarding the Glen Park proposed EMS trip. And I live within, a couple hundred yards of the park, and I just have strong feelings about that. I'm just going to, again, read my email if I could. To whom it may concern, I am a resident on Kensington. From 15 years ago, I purchased this home because I loved how all the homes were tucked away amongst the trees, and our house here had views of the natural wooded area that is known as Glen Park. The other selling point of this home was just how quiet in general the street was. My kids and I love watching the families of deer and other wildlife that come and go from the park. We also like to take walks in the park because it feels like an escape from the city and our busy lives. The thing I mentioned drastically change should the city project to move forward. I therefore strongly oppose the Glen Park project that is being proposed today. I sincerely hope that the voices of the residents who live nearest to the park carry more weight than those of voices of residents that will have nothing to lose, including their property value. Thank you for hearing my opinion and on this, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, my name is April Podgeser. I live in Kalamazoo County, Schoolcraft Township, and I am calling in reference to concerns over the Riverside Cemetery. I don't know if your department oversees that, but my father's been buried there for the last coming upon 8 years now, and I know that years prior to that, the city subcontracted out the care for the grounds there for the cemetery, and it really has went downhill since. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done in that cemetery, a lot of tree work, trees to be taken out and trimmed, and just last year they began efforts with that, which all the money that was supposed to go towards that effort did not, because they allocated it for other things as well, and that was not the original agreement. Anyway, or understanding rather. So if you could please give me a call back at 269-312-9275. I'd be very grateful in hearing about what you plan on doing about the cemetery to improve it, and what it would take for you to consider having the city take back care of the grounds, because it's went through like 5 lawn care services in the last 8 years at least. So, and they had to replace one of the lawn care companies actually damaged my father's headstone and had to replace it. The city initially paid for it, but then they got reimbursed by the lawn care service. And it's been damaged, scratched multiple times past that. So, and I shouldn't have to deal with that. And I've witnessed other careless things with the lawn care services that have been hired through the years. And frankly, yes, people that are there are dead, they're buried, but, that's a beautiful cemetery, and it deserves more respect than what it's being given. So if you would call me back, I'd be very grateful. Again, 269-312-9275. My name is April Podgeser. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to this situation getting resolved. Thank you. Bye.
Hi, this is Carl Freed. I live in Kalamazoo in the Winchell neighborhood, and I would just like to state for the record that I am for developing Glen Park into a bike trail for the kids. I think it would be a great asset to the community to have a city park which encourages kids to get out and ride their bikes and get active and enjoy nature, and hopefully take some responsibility for keeping green spaces thriving. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Jeff Daniels. I live in Winchell. I'm making a comment about the Glen Park bike track. I think it would be a great addition to the neighborhood. I think it would be great to encourage kids to get outside, do some exercising, be part of nature. I really don't see anything negative about this. I don't see any parking issues. I think developing that parks with a bike course would be good. And yeah, those are all my comments. Thank you very much. Bye.
Hi, my name is Dagny, and I do live within the city. I have a couple questions about the BMX track that is being addressed for the Winchell neighborhood. So the first question is that we're right next door to Glen Park North, and right now it's either my husband or our neighbor that lives across the street that has to mow that park, because the people that are supposed to be mowing it are not keeping up with it, and nobody's taking care of it. So I've emailed the city on multiple occasions to let them know that. But if we can't maintain the current status of where it's at, then I guess I don't understand how we're going to be able to maintain a new BMX track there. The second question I had was that we were talking about that it should be in the meeting, that it should be preschool through 5th grade that it's attracting. But the problem is, I have a 6-year-old, and there are no sidewalks to get. Like, I can't even get from my home to Winchell Elementary with the use of a sidewalk. So then as soon as you have to go down that big hill, cars go up there very quickly. There's no safe way for children to get to the park without sidewalks present. So how would that be addressed? And I think, and then another thing that I thought was odd is we started the meeting with talking about how we couldn't upkeep MLK Park, and then a lot of mention was made, well, that's not the only park that we can't upkeep. There's budgetary issues, and so why are we bringing on new parks when we can't upkeep the ones that are existing? So those are kind of my questions and concerns as a whole. Thank you.
My name is Zadie Jackson, and this is regarding the change of the parks in the Winchell neighborhood. We have more wildlife in this neighborhood than anybody realizes, and they're out during the day, they're out during the night. We have herds of deer, we have lots of raccoons, we have skunks. So the concern regarding wildlife is well taken. If we're going to make a bike park out of one of the small parks in Winchell neighborhood, yeah, we got animals. And again, my name is Zadie Jackson, and I do live in the city.
Good evening. My name is Diana Morton Thompson. I live in the Winchell neighborhood. And listening to the comments of the PRAB, a couple things strike me is that we really don't have very much information other than there's going to be a track somewhere in the park and it's for kids. It would be really helpful if we could have as soon as possible, and preferably several weeks in advance of any meetings with the neighborhood and or the neighborhood boards, to have a scaled map of the track location along with information on the grades and the construction specifications. It would also be nice if we could have a schedule of the proposed maintenance on this. I look forward to receiving some additional information so that we have something more than just hand waving. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Hi, this is Karen Larson. I've visit Glen Park on a regular basis. I live in Oakwood neighborhood. I've always thought Glen Park would be a beautiful place to make a listening park for young children, for families, as well as for our sight impaired people. I think that it would be a beautiful place to be able to just do some very specific things, which is done throughout the rest of the United States. A listening park for visually impaired, but for young families as well as for teens. It would be much better use of it. And the BMX, even though it is a nice idea, the listening park would serve us so much more. And seeing how we have the blind school, it would be ideal. Thank you very much. Bye.
I think that might be the end. Yep.
All right, well, why don't we start with Kayleen's list, and then we can start making our own, make a comparison, and then we'll just have to walk through all the issues. So, and then figure out what we can do.
We're not going to do that tonight, though, are we?
I'd love to, but no, I mean, I'll work on mine tonight. But it feels like we should have a discussion sometime between now and our next meeting. I don't know if email is an appropriate way to handle that conversation. Shawn, any thoughts?
Yeah, I would say I would be happy to consolidate thoughts and do a review of the information. I think if Kayleen wanted to send her bullet points, and if other people wanted to go through it and provide some bullet points / thoughts, I can be the consolidator of that information. I would also recommend, and this is really at the behest of the board chair and vice chair, but maybe just a small subcommittee that's interested in moving this work forward, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 people, 2 or 3 people and myself. Just so that we can create that comprehensive document, and we can do that back and forth via, electronically. We don't have to meet necessarily, but we could have a quick Zoom meeting if we wanted to. So I'm happy to do that.
I personally think that's a great idea. I know, Chris, you've had a passion for this idea. I would love for you to lead that if you would be willing to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Paul, since you're a neighborhood resident as well, we'd love your assistance.
Sounds good.
I nominate Kayleen.
Yeah, I think Kayleen is a former resident of the neighborhood. I think she would be a good addition too.
Yeah. Can't tell if Paul's serious or not.
What?
Yeah, we really want Kayleen to do that.
No, we definitely.
No, that's fine.
Okay, right. So we will connect, and I'll make sure that ship keeps moving forward.
All right, perfect. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so we'll have an ad hoc advisory committee with Chris and Kayleen and Paul.
Yeah, maybe as part of that committee too, we can also just start to plan out a schedule of how things will go, because I get the impression that a lot of the comments that we've heard just are just that people don't understand what's happening and the process that takes to get to a final answer of like a park actually being formed or changed in any sort of way. And yeah. I think they thought that a lot of decisions might be made tonight, and I guess it wasn't even clear to me what we were going to do tonight. And so make sure that we have that plan set out, discuss with the neighbors, discuss at a board meeting, make a decision on like a yes, no from the board, but then it still needs to go to the city commission, I believe, before anything really happens. And just kind of have that plan laid out, and also just the information about the park, which was addressed in that last phone call. I don't think that was clear to a lot of people. It's
yeah, that was
to organize.
So a fair amount of information was relayed to Pete Kushner, and he disseminated that information through Facebook, which I don't think is a necessarily reliable way to get that information out, because a lot of us, I'm not on Facebook. I know a lot of people aren't on Facebook. So maybe we can have a conversation with him so that he can find a better way to disseminate some of that information.
Well, and I know the Winchell neighborhood actually has a monthly newsletter. I did not see anything about this in the newsletter. I still get it. So I think that's, no offense, kind of a fail on whoever's running that or the board, for not giving information one way or another. So if that could be added, I think that's another resource and outlet for that actual neighborhood to be part of the conversation as well.
It's pretty evident to me that a lot of the individuals have a different concept than what the probable real concept for the park is going to be. And I think we all need to do whatever we can from Shawn down to make sure the neighborhood knows what the plan is, as we've just reiterated, so that they kind of get off their emotional effort and realize, what the plan is going to be and how it's going to play out.
Yep.
Agreed.
Totally agree.
Well, and I actually stopped by the site and looked at it, and I spoke to a resident who lives next door to it, and she was alarmed that she knew nothing about this project until she saw Chris putting out stakes. I mean, I think I would have been alarmed as well. I mean, is this person coming into the neighborhood to construct a home? What is this person doing there? And I think we would all be alarmed if we saw someone doing that.
Yeah, that's fair. I think maybe in hindsight, we should have let the community, or at least Pete Kushner, know. But Shawn and Patrick and I did have a conversation about that before we started. So it wasn't done willy-nilly.
Which is fine, but what was communicated to the residents?
That's the issue.
Right.
Sure. I also stopped by the site and checked it out. I do have, a few questions or things that I would want follow up on as well. I think some of the things that it sounds like we're going to implement and move forward with would help address some of that just from a visualized standpoint. I do think it's interesting. I don't know if anybody else stopped by, but one of the neighbors has laid down a mulch track from their house all the way into the park. So I'm not saying I'm for or against it. I do find it interesting that everybody is pro, let's preserve the green space, but then they're letting their neighbors lay down a mulch kind of path. So I think that, like Chris had mentioned, I think emotions are high. I think a lot of people were gung-ho, let's jump on this. But in all reality, I don't know how many people are actually being advocates for that park. I don't know, Shawn, if you've ever gotten a complaint or any insight about just a neighborhood resident laying down their own mulch and kind of using it as their own property and land. So I do think that that's an interesting caveat. I'm not saying that there isn't wildlife or, animals. I'm not, saying that that's not possible or feasible. I'm just saying there are a couple of interesting things just from going in there and viewing it myself. last month.
I agree with all those comments. I visited recently, and those reflect what I've noticed as well.
I have just one last comment. I did visit it and walked around it. If I'm hearing it right, the trail wouldn't be all that much different than a walking trail, or would the development be different than just having a walking trail that's used by bikers?
Yeah, that's, excuse me, Chris, that's a good question. It will be developed differently. It will have like banked corners in it, which you really don't put in a walking path, but there's no reason why someone couldn't go out there and walk on it.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, that just clarified. When I walked in there, with the exception of the very backs area by the road, that gets quite steep.
It does get steep.
It's relatively flat.
Mm-hmm.
So in my vision, I'm thinking of a trail all the way up to almost to the road, and then a couple little switchbacks. Wasn't even thinking of a bank situation, but that's.
Yeah, there were flags out there. It sounds like they may have been removed.
They were gone by the time I got there.
Okay, so
They were gone when I went there.
Well,
anyway.
Chris, can you say just how aggressive like the downhill portion would be? Like you're cutting the diagram I saw, there were switchbacks. So are you bombing down hills? Is that what you're envisioning? Or are you?
No.
What are you seeing?
So the trail will be built to match the contour that comes from the southeast side. I believe that's the highest portion of the park. It's that back, if you're looking in the park, that back left corner that borders Parkview. And you would just kind of wind down the contours back and forth. So it'd be actually a really gentle descent, and it would be designed in such a way that kids could hopefully coast almost all the way down to the bottom.
I see. Thanks.
Yep.
I think you're on, John.
So have we concluded our discussion of the Glen Park project?
I think we have for now.
Okay, and the group of you will get together to discuss concerns with the neighborhood association and people who've called in or emailed or whatever.
Yep.
So this is just a starting point.
Absolutely.
Nothing's happening. This is just the start of the conversation.
Accurate.
Okay. Next agenda item is approval of the March minutes.
I'm sorry, I don't know if you guys have copies of those or not. Corey was still here as the recording secretary at that time, and he's no longer with us. So if you guys need copies of those minutes, please let me know and I'll make sure to send them to you.
I personally don't recall seeing the minutes. So
I don't either.
Okay.
And on that note, where is Corey? Can you share?
Yeah, he left us for a similar position in Wyoming. So he doesn't have to make the commute now.
So Wyoming, the city, not the state?
Yes, Wyoming,
Okay.
the city. Sorry, I should have been clear.
So yeah, you guys can table that then if you want, and then I'll send you the meeting minutes this week. I'll have to look through and see what he put together, and then you can approve them at your next meeting in August.
Can approve March and July at the same meeting.
Yeah. Yep.
does someone want to make that motion?
I will.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Old business. One of our previous meetings, I brought up the topic of us being park liaisons. And I would like to discuss that further. I think Shawn thought it was a good idea. I just thought it would be a good idea if we had more eyes and ears in the parks, if there were problems with trash, tall weeds or grass or what have you. I just thought it would be a good idea to have extra input, especially for Patrick. You know, if there's a problem that Patrick needs to address, I thought it would be a good idea.
I think in some cases we already have this in place. I mean, you know, Pam is obviously a liaison for MLK Park. Chris and Natalie by default, Crane Park. So we kind of have that in place a little bit. I know Natalie will let us know if she sees something or sees something on the West Nine Hill Facebook page, brings it to our attention. So I think the blueprint is there. It becomes a matter of other people maybe identifying a park that's maybe near and dear to their heart and just becoming a liaison for that park. Is that accurate?
I think it may be a good idea. Not that we can't have a liaison, or if someone lives right there and they're passionate, like Pam, I know you're passionate about MLK. I would never take that away from you. You know, the community members, you're just great for that park and that community. So, but I think what a good idea is maybe we actually push ourselves as a board to say, hey, a goal each month is you need to visit at least 3 parks, and then you need to bring up what you're recognizing, what you're seeing, what 3 you visited each month. I don't know how the rest of you feel about that. Maybe 3 is a little bit daunting, so maybe it's at least 1. I don't know. I think being on the Parks and Rec board, we should be passionate about our parks and wanting to go to them. So even, you know, Chris, I know your kids, they do part of the actual recreation, the summer programs when they're on and things of that nature. So, you know, those would count. I think that would be how I would envision it, but I don't know everybody else's thoughts or ideas.
I think we should have a better way, even though I am familiar with some of the things that go on at the park. How do we communicate that? Do we just simply do an email? Shawn, there are several lights out that are in MLK Park. Is there like a form, or are we just going to communicate the trash being unsightly? How are we going to communicate that? Even though our eyes are out there, how do we actually get that information to the proper people like Patrick? Just give him a phone call or whatever, because there are some things that are happening in the MLK Park. There are lights that are not operating correctly. They're burnt out right now, you know, and I can make that phone call, but as an advisory board, you know, it's not, I think it should be more than an email. If there's a form or a better way of communicating, and I can understand where John feels strongly about this, you know. I don't mind, you know, being the eyes for that park, but even if a citizen wanted to make a complaint known, how would they do that? What's the best way of doing that?
We usually get emails to the general KZoo Parks email, but for the purposes of, you know, the PRAD board members, you can certainly contact me via email. Most of you probably have my cell phone. If you don't, I'll be happy to provide it. And when I get those calls, I usually, you know, get the right person to take care of whatever the issue is. You know, I'm addicted to my email in some regards. So that's usually the best way. And then I can also forward it on to the right person, because depending on the park coordinator, I may not know who the park coordinator is, in which case I'll send it to Patrick and he'll say, yeah, I'll have Carter take care of that tomorrow morning or whatever. So that's usually the fastest way, but I'm not opposed to taking calls if you see something that we need to address right away.
Good.
So do we just want to do something informally? If you see something, say something? I mean,
I do like the thought that Kayleen brought up of, maybe 2 to 3 visits a month, obviously time permitting. I know everybody's busy, but get outside that comfort zone, maybe check out a park you haven't checked out. It's good for us to have different eyes on different parks because people see things differently, and we get used to seeing things and driving in a certain way. And I think it would be helpful if, time permitting, of course, if you can take a look at another park and just let us know what you see.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
So now everybody's got homework.
Yeah.
Patrick, do you want to give us a project update?
Yeah, sure. First and foremost, I know there was a delay in Bronson Park starting. I believe the contractor is set to start that project this week. I was not by there today to see if there was anybody in the park, but that's scheduled to start again this week. I'm not exactly sure how long, but I believe probably at the most, there would be about 3 weeks of work left there. The irrigation system was estimated to take probably about another week to week and a half at the most to finalize. We completed the improvements on the splash pad at Florence Street. That's been up and running, I think almost 3 weeks now. The hours for operation of that are 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. Every day. And there's actually a new automated system where there's a pylon as you walk into the splash pad that anybody can press, and it'll activate the water. It runs for, I believe, 10 minutes, and then it'll stop, and then you can just recycle it. But that's open every day now. The improvements actually turned out really nice. The surfacing at the splash pad is now a rubberized composite, so there's no more potential for anybody to slip and fall on concrete. We have begun the port and play surfacing improvements at Upjohn Park. They replaced some of the out of compliance play equipment that we had just due to issues of it being old or something being broken. The manufacturer actually came in and replaced those parts. They actually put it's 22A, but it's a crushed concrete surface down, and then the port and play company will begin on Friday of this week prepping the site and then putting the port and play surfacing around the entire park. The portion of the park that has sand existing and some of the play equipment there will actually be refreshed and have some new sand brought in as well. So that should probably be done by the end of next week, hopefully, pending the weather. So that'll be a nice improvement there at that park. The surfacing for Kick Pool was completed about 2 weeks ago. That has a brand new bottom, kind of a PVC liner on the pool that's guaranteed for 10 years. So hopefully we won't have any more issues with the pool bottom. That's obviously not opening this year. There's a few more things we have to do there to complete, and then we'll be ready to go first thing in the summer of 2021. As far as other projects, I know we had some bids go, or the bidding went out for Lacrone. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic and all of the work that contractors had trying to catch up on, we did not get any bids. And I think Shawn can echo with this, but I believe we're going to go back out to bid for that project the end of this fall with some type of a hope to start that in the middle of the spring next year to have it done hopefully sometime early summer or midsummer for the splash pad there. And then the only other update I had was the Millam Park Dam design process is almost complete. The drawings are at about 90%. We've submitted permitting to the Eagle team through the state that former DEQ. and that's in the process of being examined right now. Once the design drawings are complete, we're planning on attending the Millwood Neighborhood Association meeting, I believe September 2nd, to answer questions about that, show the design and the drawings, with an anticipation of trying to go out to bid to that sometime this fall. The work will just be pending the DNR and any type of halts that we have based on aquatic habitat and whatnot this winter. So those were the majority of our updates.
So before we go to Ashton, I do want to say, while I was out in Oregon, I did do some work, and I did see a really cool chart that the Bend, Oregon Parks and Recreation Department had assembled. It's just a really cool color-coded project chart with some details on it. We're going to replicate that. I like to steal a good idea, so we're going to replicate that with the different projects that we kind of have in the hopper for the next 5 years. And just, it'll be short and sweet, but colorful, and have some good information in it. We'll put it on the website, we'll take it to our events, and we'll certainly share it with you folks. But it'll just be a real nice way to show people what we're working on and when it's happening and what they can expect. So
actually, there was one other thing I forgot to mention. I was going to mention it earlier, specifically to Pam. The restoration of Dr. King's statue in the park is still set to happen this summer. The company that we're actually working with does a lot of refurbishment of similar type statues throughout the national park system. They're located in Denver, and it was actually suggested from the original creator of the statue. I spoke to them via email about 3 weeks ago, and the way that they work is they try and plan their summer schedule in different portions of the country, and we're still set on their schedule. However, they don't know the exact date yet, just because they were trying to move around some of the parks due to the pandemic and some of the national parks being shut down. But that will actually happen again this summer as well. So we'll have that refurbishment done here hopefully soon.
Great to know that that's going to happen in 2020, because that sculpture looks pretty dull. I don't know what has happened to it, but the patina, it needs work. And so I'm glad to hear it's going to happen in 2020. Thanks.
Yep. You're welcome.
Patrick, what's left at Bronson Park to be done?
The majority of the things are the irrigation system. There's a new flagpole that will be put in the southeast corner. That flagpole will be put in. The base is already there, along with there's a new light that'll shine on that flagpole. The two information kiosks in the southeast and the southwest corner are there. Those just need to have the electrical connections connected into the new sign. And then the major part of what's left is the children's statues to be put in place.
So nothing really significant?
No, I don't think it'll take them too long once they start and mobilize.
Yeah, okay. And Shawn, did you say Ashton had a report for us?
yeah, he's going to give a quick update on the youth programs and movies in the park real quick.
Yeah, so we just started camps this week. We're doing 6 weeks of camp this summer, 1 week sessions of Super Rec. We have 4 different sites, all capped out at 20 kids a week. Typically, on a typical summer, it'd be 40 per site. Due to COVID, we knocked it down to 20. The kids are in pods of 10, and they stay with those same 10 kids all week long. Those sites are Mayor's YDC, the Douglas / Lacrone, and Rockwell Park. So we're able to utilize the new building at Rockwell this year. Let's see here. All Things Possible was previously held at Western, the Student Recreation Center, but it did have to be moved due to COVID. So we're at Station 5. We're doing 3 2-week sessions there. They're going to be spending a lot of time at the parks, actually, doing some projects. I think they're starting building picnic tables this week, actually, to utilize for them to eat lunches at. Things like that. We're also going to be taking a lot less trips this year. So we're going to be on site, working on some skills, things like that. I know they're doing some cooking and STEM, leadership, things of that nature. As for events, so Corey left in April. We have a new person starting on Monday. Pretty excited to have her. Let's see here. We've got Lunchtime Live going. It started up the second week in June. I think it was the 12th. Just trucks and table vendors. This week will be our first week, with live music. We have a New Orleans style band coming, so I'm excited to bring back some live music. We still don't have tables or games or anything like that due to having staffing issues to make sure it's clean and sanitized in between uses. So we're sticking to just the vendors, and now we have some live music as opposed to Pandora. Movies in the Park, Summer Cinema Series. That the first one was supposed to be late June and actually got rained out. It was going to be at Crane Park. So our next one is this Friday at Millen Park. We're going to show Aladdin. I think that's the general overview of what we have going on right now.
One other quick thing, I happened to drive by the Youth Development Center today, and the paint job is looking pretty cool. So if you get a chance, swing by and check that out. It looks way better.
Great.
Shawn, can you talk to any more on the YDC if there's interest from the city of purchasing that and moving it? Do you remember?
So our long-term plan, which is if everything goes as planned, would be within the next 3 years, we would build a new building at the farmers market that would serve multiple roles. It would serve as the winter market. It would be used during the regular markets for additional vendors. It would be used as an after-school site. It would be used for a summer camp site / maybe super rec site. It might be everything there. But that building would replace the Youth Development Center, and Public Services is interested in the Youth Development Center property to do some floodwater mitigation in that area. So the creek maybe could spill over into that area as well when the creek swells in that area, which it does often. So hopefully by 2023, we move out of that facility and we would be located at the farmers market. There would be a building there that's around, I think it's just under 10,000 square feet, ample storage so we could store computers and different games and activities for kids when we're there. It would have the overhead garage doors so we can open it up and people can kind of come and go, but it would also have air conditioning and heat, so it can be a year-round site for us. So we're really excited about that. That building would also be, as I said, used by the market, but rental opportunities for different, family reunions, weddings, different gatherings. So it'll have, revenue generating income, but also serve an important role for youth too.
Was that commissioned out or was that grant or pro bono?
What commissioned out?
The artwork on the YDC.
So it's not really artwork as much as it is just a paint job.
Okay, so it's not like the kick pool we're talking.
No. It's
okay.
It's a little less subtle.
Okay, gotcha. So it's just like a fresh coat of paint. It's not like we're throwing massive dollars at it.
Nope, this one was not nearly as significant as the pool.
That was
some nicer colors, but
gotcha. Okay.
Is that it, Shawn?
I will talk real quickly. The farmers market project is still on track for September 8th. So construction would begin on that site, including the realignment of Bank Street. The north parking lot will get a complete redo. That's the area along Lake Street, parking lot just adjacent to Lake Street, south of Lake Street. And then the road obviously being realigned, we'll get a new segment of the Kalamazoo River Valley Trail separated from the sidewalk, and then a new restroom building. It was actually less expensive to tear the old building down and start new. So it'll get, I believe the ladies will have 5 seats. The men will have 4. And then there will also be a family changing locker room, or not locker room, restroom. So those will be the improvements that will start this fall and be done by the spring. The market will shift over to Upjohn Park.
Oh.
With the vendors essentially backing up to the pathway. As long as we don't get monsoon rains and would destroy the turf, vendors can back up to the pathway. So the thought would be that people could kind of start at one end and kind of work their way through the vendors, so they wouldn't have to, set up in a field or whatever. So we're working with the food co-op on that plan, and they're ready to switch when the construction starts on September 8th.
How long will that construction last?
So that'll go probably until April. The contractor will know that they'll need to be done so the market can start in May.
Awesome.
Okay, event recommendations. We have Coriana McDowell. Let Your Voice Be Heard on Saturday, July 11. Did I not see information regarding that, Danielle, or did I just
it was
miss
at the
it?
bottom
Maybe?
of the agenda, like the agenda PDF. It had all the Winchell neighborhood stuff, and then at the very bottom, there was this event information.
Okay. Has everyone had a chance to review the information?
I have not.
I have not either. I didn't know where it was. So thanks, Paul, for pointing that out.
So I got it open right now. The description says I will be hosting a March rally starting and ending in Bronson Park. This is 200 to 300 people. We will have special guests from George Floyd's family and other various members of the community speaking at Bronson Park. As well, there will be a DJ to provide music and some performances. We'll march through the streets of downtown Kalamazoo and return back to Bronson Park. And there will be final speeches. Attendees will have time for photos with the family, and that will conclude the event. It's from 6 p.m. to start at 2 p.m., ends at 6 p.m. in Bronson Park on the 11th, so this weekend.
Yeah, they want to be done by 7 p.m. They just put some setup and cleanup times.
Well, I guess my first concern would be that the state guideline is 100 for social distancing and group gatherings. So the 200 to 300 number scares me a little bit.
I agree.
I mean, I think we should follow state guidelines. I guess I don't know your input on that, Shawn, how the Parks and Recs feels about that, if we really should be promoting events that are larger than that.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because as we've seen throughout the country right now,
There's an upsurge.
Yeah, I mean, they're being allowed to happen. There is the right to peacefully protest. I don't think we can legally stop it.
I don't think we can legally stop protesting either, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't protest. I'm just saying I don't know if it's smart for us to put our names behind an event that we know is going to be 200 to 300 people. If you gather on your own and you want to do free speech and protest, that is your God-given right, and please go do that. But if you're asking me to support you as a Parks and Board member and let you rent out a event space or a park, I think that's a little bit different.
Yeah, and I think as a city, we're trying to be accommodating and provide, we don't want to be in a position where we're necessarily saying no and making people, mad about not supporting peaceful protests. So I certainly understand exactly what you're saying, because I think it's one of those things where people are like, should they or shouldn't they? And, when it comes down to it, legally they can. So we're trying to be supportive, but also, we're encouraging people to wear masks. We want people to be safe. We want people to socially distance, even though maybe that doesn't happen in certain instances. So I think the city's trying to be generally supportive, but I definitely understand the concern.
So if we don't charge them and just acknowledge the event without approval, disapproval, just acknowledge the event, public service, I take it, has been informed for street. Are they going to march on the sidewalks or in the street?
My understanding is sidewalks.
And I believe the event coordinator's been working with public safety already. Ashton might be able to say a little bit more. He's been speaking directly with the event organizer. This was kind of a tough one for us too, whether it was really even one to send you guys to approve, because it almost seems like whether it's approved or not, they're more than likely going to use the space. If it's approved, then it's more of a guaranteed, usage, that they have the usage of the space.
It sounds like they're going to need electrical hookups as well. Is that something we have to provide for them?
Yeah, the power would be on. We don't provide any other, like we don't provide electrical cords or like the same type of support we'd provide at Lunchtime Live. And that's, in a lot of cases, Bronson Park's unique in that many speeches and public, things happen there. So, this is really no different. They haven't reserved it, but we know there's nothing else going on that day. So, any group can use the stage, and we have a lot of people that show up and just, do their thing. So I think we appreciate this approach more than just the random stuff that happens. And then we get calls about, well, the power's not on. Well, we don't always turn the power on just to have the power on, because that becomes a different issue with people plugging in various things. And so I think from the city standpoint, the organizers are trying to do it right. And we appreciate that, because then it's not a bunch of surprises and we're aware of it. Public safety's in the loop, public services in the loop, we're in the loop, city administration's in the loop. That's a best case scenario in our mind.
Just so you guys have a little bit more information about this, I saw a news story on MLive today about this. So it's already being advertised there. Apparently there'll be the friend of George Floyd and then a childhood friend, who's Steven Jackson, who's a former NBA basketball player and famously looks, I guess, like George Floyd. And so he will be here, and I can't imagine that it won't be a gigantic crowd if he's here. Yep. And I don't know, it sounds like they're trying to organize this in the right way, and getting the right people involved. I don't know why we're really even voting on this if we don't have any really influence over it, but if we do vote, I mean, it does seem like something that we should try to support a group that does things the right way, even if, I mean, it's hard. It's a difficult one because of that. The number one, we know that it's unsafe in some ways.
Yeah, I agree with you, Paul. And is them adhering to the social distancing guidelines essentially our responsibility? Not really.
I think it is if they put on their application 200 to 300 people.
Well, I mean, the city doesn't have any liability in, an organized protest. It's the responsibility of the individual to socially distance and, be safe. It'd be really difficult for somebody to say, yeah, the city, was aware of this event and I contracted COVID.
I agree with Paul's sentiment in the fact that I feel like this is a good cause and it's something we should support. And even if it is only ceremonial, that we should make a vote to approve it.
Well, and just as a reminder, we are an advisory board. So however this board chooses to vote, that's essentially a recommendation to the city commission. The city commission obviously is going to have their say and does, and that's fine.
Can we vote in a way that, and phrase it in a way that encourages them to socially distance and to wear masks and to do the right thing? I mean, can we do it that way?
I think that's advisable. I think you could make a motion such that, approval with encouraging people to socially distance, to, act in a safe manner for their own well-being.
I wouldn't even get into the details, just say to abide by the state mandated
Sure.
COVID-19 rules.
I
think that's a great way to put it. Less is more.
Kayleen, are you comfortable with that?
So I feel like I'm the Debbie Downer tonight. I guess my only thing is like, okay, if this was Rib Fest, would we be saying yes to this? Would the city be saying yes to this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that this isn't a good cause. I'm not saying I can't get behind the cause and I don't agree with it and that there's not an injustice going on right now. I'm not talking about any of that. I guess when I just look at it in black and white, the state guideline is 100. You know what I mean? And you're point blank putting on your application 200 to 300 people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, white out the number of attendees. And then
Right.
I'm fine with saying yes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just think of it. So we turn around and then we get an event in August and we're going to say no. And yes, who really looks at our meeting minutes and who really looks at who votes for what? But I don't know. I just feel like in good conscience, this feels a little weird to me. I'm not saying the matter is not important. I'm not saying they're not going to protest anyways. Like Paul mentioned, it's already on MLive. They clearly have the traction. They're clearly going to do it anyways. So I feel like, why should we attach our name to something that could potentially come back and be like, you were negligent. You knew this was going to be, what if for some ungodly reason something went bad? Like you were negligent. You knew that there was going to be 300 plus people. You put your name on. I guess that I'm playing devil's advocate tonight.
No, it's good. It's good.
Yeah. The other thing I would say too is it's kind of hard to compare it to a Rib Fest just because of the nature of what's being requested. And, not to beat a dead horse, so to speak, but, I really appreciate the fact that they've gone about this the right way, because it could have gone the other way where they said nothing and it happened and we found out via MLive News or social media that it was happening. And so I totally don't disagree at all with what you're saying, but I also see the side of it where if they hadn't gone about it the right way and tried to do the right thing, it could have really been really bad for the city.
So what if we do this? What if on the application, we cross out their number of people, put 100 per state guideline, they're not going to listen to it anyways, and then it's approved?
I don't think we can change that document legally. Our city attorney might have an issue with that. Here's what I can do is I think you vote, and you vote however you feel you need to vote, as it's only a recommendation to the city commission, but I can follow up with Attorney Cherry, Assistant City Attorney Cherry, and get his thoughts, and I can share that with you guys. Is that fair?
It sounds fair.
I think we should still add the caveat that let's say we approve it. We should say, we highly encourage you to follow all state guidelines due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and just leave it at that. You know,
Yeah,
that,
and clearly y'all are gonna say yay, and I'm gonna be the only nay, so it's gonna go through anyway. So it's fine.
That's okay. Sometimes you got to be the lone soldier. It happens.
I guess.
but I mean, I don't think we want to make a big deal about the number of people attending or not attending and whether they social distance. That's going to be their decision anyway. But we can remind them that we are in a pandemic time and that they should abide by the guidelines for the state, and just leave it at that. Then we've done our due diligence, I think. That's my opinion.
Can I make a motion?
Absolutely.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this this event as long as they abide by state guidelines.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Opposed? It passes.
Did we get Paul's vote on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, that's approved. Evidently, we have no citizen comments, or can we do that, Shawn?
Our citizen comments were what was recorded and left on the voicemail. I did get 2 more that came in after the fact. I may have to.
First, or are you just gonna?
I'm sorry.
Have you listened to them first? Or are you just?
I have not. I was paying attention to. Let me see if I can play those. Oh, hang on. I'll play them for you.
Yeah, hi, my name is Jack Livingstone. I'm the owner of Tree Fellers Tree Service here in Kalamazoo. I live in Winchell. I do a lot of work here in the neighborhood. And my real company name is Three Brothers Construction. The reason I named my company that is after my kids, and the reason I started working so much in Winchell is to try to connect to my neighbors, because growing up in the aftermath of big flight Detroit, I really missed the community that other people had grown up with that I'd heard about. And I wanted my kids to grow up somewhere, my neighbors, and as they help in my business one day, they can help too. And basically build a network here and a community, and something that's really evaporated in our country with urban sprawl and with very mobile since the 50s, people blow off community. And I'm hoping to kind of do my part to rebuild that. And I think this park will be a great step toward that. People sharing another.
Whoops, somehow I paused that.
Place here where kids can get together and have a common experience in the neighborhood, and something to come back to and people to repeatedly run into and get to know. So I think the more parks in our neighborhood, the better. And a bike track would be an excellent idea and a wonderful addition to our beautiful neighborhood, and a place for all of us to get together. So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate your consideration on this. Have a great day. Again, this is Jack Livingstone in Winchell. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right, there's only one more.
Good evening. My name is James Stroop, and I'm calling following the Zoom meeting tonight regarding Glen Park. My wife and family and I live right across from Glen Park, where the proposed BMX course is being considered. A couple of points. One is there's wildlife there all day and all night. During the day, the wildlife will take shelter there, away from the busyness of the day and the traffic during the day. Another point, and my kids raised this, I have an 11 and a 13-year-old that expressed concern about their riding bikes in the neighborhood, that there are no safe trails or sidewalks down to this part of the neighborhood. It's down big hills. People come up Parkview and Broadway, going sometimes 40 miles an hour, and they just come right down Ferdinand and down Kensington. So there are issues there with parking and safety. We've had already some parking issues.
For whatever reason, it just stops.
Right in front of our house where people park, and makes it difficult to get out of our driveway. There are maintenance issues that we've seen in the last few years where garbage collection, proper mowing, proper care of the upper field, but as well trees threatening to fall on my house that I've had to remove myself because the city would not respond to my calls. So in terms of maintenance, we have real concerns there. We have concerns for safety and what else might be attracted other than a very small cohort of kids with well-meaning parents. There were the offers that those with kids would take care of the course, but when the kids grow, who's going to maintain interest in that? Who's going to pass the torch? Where's it going to go then? So there's that side of it. I understand the need to have kids introduced to nature, but why does that need to be a noisy and disruptive activity? There's a constant stream of people who come by and will sit quietly by the wood.
Yeah, might be my phone.
Or harvest mushrooms. People who are looking for the quiet and the serenity that this offers. So I don't think it makes sense to swap out one cohort that will use it in a limited way and maybe lose interest because screens do capture kids' interest these days, in favor of the group that is currently using that space. We had a fawn that was born there within a month. We had a den of foxes with 7 kids that was right there in Glen Park a couple of years ago. So there are very real things that are already taking place in the use of that space that would be disrupted or destroyed by putting in that course. Again, my name is James Stroop. I hope to speak with you further regarding this. There's a final question regarding liability with this. There's no boundary between personal private yards and what that park is, but also what is the liability to the city with kids.
Oh, he ran out of time. Yeah, I have to take on the liability one just because the city, we have numerous activities in parks throughout the city, whether it be swimming or trails or, that would fall under our general liability. If a kid falls off his bike, whether it's on the street or on the KRVT or on a pump track in a park or what, those things happen. And unless we're grossly negligent, we're going to be okay. And in addition to that, we do have governmental immunity. So we're somewhat protected, again, unless we're grossly negligent. So.
It looks like our commission liaison has left.
Yep.
We do not have a Friends of Recreation liaison, or is that you, Shawn?
It's kind of me.
Do you have a report?
Yeah, obviously things have slowed down due to COVID. We're trying to plan the golf outing for September 14th. So mark your calendars or just send me a check, please. Thank you. Other than that, reboot of the website and, just working on, getting donations to help fund the youth scholarships. So.
Didn't we just redo the website?
The city website or the Friends of Rec website?
Oh, I'm sorry. The city website. You're referring to the Friends of Rec.
Yeah, separate from us. Ours is about due for a freshening, but I still think it's pretty awesome. So we're not going to put a ton of effort into it just yet.
Shawn, do you have any other update?
No, I covered my stuff earlier during the projects. I will say that we are in the midst of budget preparation. So if you have questions about our budget, if you I will keep you informed as far as key dates. I don't know that there's going to be a public input process for the budget. I know we have, as a city administration, we've talked about that, about how do we get input long before December when we have, that public meeting to kind of lay out the next year's budget. So I will definitely keep you apprised of that.
Okay, thank you. Danielle, do you have any comment?
Yeah, I'll just let you guys know I'm filling in as your recording secretary until our new special event coordinator starts. I'll probably buddy up with her for a couple of months until she feels comfortable and then hand her off. So if you guys have anything for any meetings, just send it to me ahead of time.
Perfect. Ashton, do you have anything further?
I do not. Sorry, I was having trouble getting the mute button to turn off. I gave all my update earlier as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chris Ball, do you have any comments? Chris, you're on mute.
I read his lips though.
I don't have any comments at this time. Thanks, guys.
Chris Patchell?
No. We've dragged it out long enough. I think. Good, that's fine.
Pam, do you have any comments?
No, I don't. I'm ready for dinner.
Paul, any comments?
I'll ruin it and I'll add some comments. I wish he was still here, but it was nice to have Eric at the meeting. This is the first time I've ever seen a commissioner at our meeting. And then I just want to thank Chris Bull for organizing what he has so far on the Glen Park changes. It doesn't often feel like, our board has ideas or changes that are, that we're not just approving, like something that's actually original to the board is kind of really exciting. And so I'm excited whether this goes through or not, just to see something that kind of originated by a committee member here on this board.
Thanks, Paul.
Kayleen, any comments?
No.
Really?
Was that a no?
I wanted to say like 50 sarcastic things tonight, but I knew they would all be on record and everybody who attends that normally does. What is this wackadoo?
Okay, I think that's it, unless anyone has any other comments.
Nice to see you all. Glad you're all safe.
Yeah.
Nice to see you all
too.
It's been a while. Okay, I think we're adjourned.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night. Good night.
Thanks. Have a good night.